different, and every story is true. Why I couldn't talk about this for my family. It was so, I don't know what the word is. Dramatic.
Right? He's gotta sit down. He's gotta sit down. Take this. Oh.
My father, my brother, my girlfriend at the time, and myself were all involved in picking up, finding and picking up bodies from the airplane, which was a couple days job. You want me to sit down?
Yeah, I think it's better. I feel better. I feel better if you did. I think Martha would feel better if you did.
Take care of these old people. Actually, the bodies were scattered helter-skelter over 160, 200 acres of ground, except for the cockpit, which landed, what Marion said, quite a ways from the tail. And there was parts of the plane all scattered throughout that area on farmland and in the river bottom. And we had to, what is true, find the bodies, and we had to pick them up so they could be taken to the morgue. The cockpit actually burned in excess of 2 days for unspent fuel, with the bodies of the pilots still inside it. So you know it was probably the third day when we were able to get the bodies out of the cockpits. I remember picking up those bodies when one person said, picking up these bodies is like picking up 7 foot of jello and trying to put it in a paper sack, because every bone was crushed from the compaction with the ground. That's one reason we can't talk about the bodies and the conditions they were in. And I won't say any more than that, but I thank Marion, because I was so obsessed and whatever confused that all I ever thought about was the bodies and what the hell they went through, until she told me about her life of being raised without a real father and the things she had to go through. And then I realized that these people only suffered for a few beats in a heartbeat. And there are people that have suffered for years and years, and maybe through a whole lifetime, that needed to have our compassion. There needs to be a memorial just for these families that needs to be displayed where people know their names. I feel there will be a memorial someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but if you could help support us to get a memorial, it'd be appreciated. But another thing is, if not, just say a prayer for these families. Thank you.
Okay, stay here.
I copy that. Most of the time I can't. Sorry.
You did.
No, I love you. This is so cool. When I met him in 2022, I was with fear and trepidation. It took me months to want to call him because I was afraid he wouldn't want to hear from me. I was afraid of what he was going to say, or what I was going to say, or what he was. I didn't know what his response would be. I didn't want to upset him. But beauty came out of this. When we came out in 2022, you went, CBS interviewed me, ABC7 did, local reporters came out on the fields. He went 3 times with me to the fields. And one time, I really thanked him. I knew it was our last time seeing him. I thanked him for all he did. And what did you tell me?
I don't remember now.
Oh, okay. He told me, thank you, Marion, you brought much healing to me. And I was taken back by that. That was like awe-inspiring. And then recently, last 2 weeks in planning this trip and seeing how he was doing, catching up on news, he told me more specifics of what happened on those wheat fields. But he said one thing that really struck me. He said, Marion, for 66 years, because up to 2022 was 66 years, I was haunted by what happened on the fields. Right?
Yep.
But after I came,
It
Did you
really
say?
helped me. It didn't soak in right away, it took time. But eventually, I realized that all of my thoughts about the people and the hell I went through to get killed on a plane only lasted for a heartbeat or two. Their problems and everything, where people actually had years and maybe a lifetime of suffering because of the evil thing a person has done. We never ever, family-wise, talked about it until the 50th anniversary, when the reporters started coming, and my kids said, Dad, you've never told us about that crash. I said, I never want to talk about that crash.
Sure.
And that's brought a lot of things back. And it's just been the last maybe 3 years, I would say, that my memory is bringing back things that it's kind of been subconsciously hidden that happened. After working at that site for 30 days, I'm sure I could tell you 30 different stories, but it's terrible.
but what he told me was that his haunting stopped. So it just wasn't healing for him. My coming. I was just me, okay? Not super spiritual, not super any person, coming. And I had no idea, when he told me in 2022 was healing for him, I thought it was healing for me, more resolution for me. When you told me that the haunting stopped, that took it a little deeper level. And this is the beauty out of this whole story. And I just love you to life.
Thank you for having courage to come meet me.
Oh, thank you. So, you all have a wonderful heritage here, and there's many, many stories. I'm collecting stories, and if any of you know of any stories, I have a flyer there, and on the email list, you'll keep in touch with me, but let me know specifically if you or family members know of stories. I know there's a Virginia Hoppe, Berto, because of the articles coming out about me coming, she contacted me. She's 85 years old. She's going to come to Longmont, the evening of Longmont. She was 15 years old at the time, and she told me her story. She also told me her story about her friend's family. And her friend and her friend's parents, they're the family, was eating at the Stapleton restaurant where people would go and they'd watch the planes take off. They were there the night November 1st. And after it all went down, they realized they saw the killer. And because they said there was a young gentleman just pacing up and down, getting up nervously, looking out the window, because that's recorded, that's what he did. But this other family, local family here, actually saw him. But of course, obviously didn't know what had happened because no one knew for a couple weeks. So then they put two and two together. So that's one of the stories. There are, as he said, hundreds, because you said close to 500. I said 200, you said 500.
I'll tell you, there were so many, in 20 minutes, there were so many people. They tore down our fences. They got high-centered in the fields where the irrigation ditches separated one field from another.
Yeah.
Thank God it was dark, that they couldn't find those bodies, because if you found a body, you stayed with it because of the pilfers that were actually stealing parts from the body. And you had to stay with them. That was the first night, and I thank God that it was dark, and the bodies were scattered over 200 acres of ground. The one that was the farthest away was the child, about a quarter of a mile on another farm called the Lang property. And the cockpit with the pilots inside was on the Heil property, just over the fence line from our property. And I don't remember exactly, because I didn't see all of the bodies. We didn't have time. My father, my brother, and my girlfriend, who now has been my wife for 67 years, we're busy. We're busy trying to pick these bodies up and get them to the makeshift morgue in Greeley, Colorado.
Yeah, so I'm forever grateful, my sister and I are, for what these citizens did. I have tried locating the other families of the victims. I managed to find, well actually she found me, the daughter of the pilot found me, and we're good friends. She lives in Seattle though. And